carbohydrate drink. After that hour, it's really preferred, and it shows a significant benefit in your performance if you replace those electrolytes and carbohydrates and longer duration. I think we had a soccer player, a couple of soccer players, I think. So that, that would be one event in particular that comes to mind, because in the course of a soccer match, kids can run several miles.
Mm-hmm.
So and sometimes in hot weather. So, but in those shorter events, water works just as well as anything. Stop and start, baseball, football, those sort of activities where you're not consistently moving for 2 or 3 hours. Water tends to do just fine. Any questions on sports drinks? Okay. As far as using sports drinks to replace those electrolytes, what electrolytes do for us is basically control where water goes in our body. We talked a little bit earlier about water being in between the muscle fibers and trying to lubricate those muscle fibers. Our body tells that water where to go using sodium and potassium. Basically, it says either go into the cell or go outside of the cell. And having enough electrolytes in our body to control those water shifts is necessary to prevent the cramping and to stay adequately hydrated. You're not going to get enough in those sports drinks to really replace everything that you lost in sweat. So it's important to replace some of that afterwards, whether that means, it sounds a little bit strange coming from a dietitian, but if it's potato chips or salted peanuts or something that has some salt to it, that doesn't mean that you have to have an entire bag of potato chips, because there's going to be a lot more calories in it than we really need. But something that is salty is oftentimes a good idea when our kids are sweating a lot. Pickles work great.
There's fewer calories in pickles, like pickles are good.
And salt tablets, if you wanted to go that far, especially in 2 days in the middle of August when you're wearing pads and helmets and stuff like that, when you really are probably sweating as much as you ever will. Kids can lose 2,000 milligrams of salt in a day, and to replace that on top of your diet is a good idea. Just one way to go about doing it. So any other questions on hydration, electrolytes, sports drinks, anything from the hydration handout that raises an eyebrow or a question?
Like that color chart, probably don't use that if they took a multivitamin or something. Because it's not real accurate. So
yeah, so if they take it in the morning, and in the morning the urine's bright color, basically go off of, if they take it in the morning and practices in the afternoon or evening, basically their most recent bathroom break.
so don't panic.
Okay, so talking a little bit, mix of protein, carbohydrate, fat. We'll get into all of that as well. So, as far as meal timing, same idea as we had with water. You want to make sure that you get enough in you to prepare you for the event, but you also want to make sure that it's out of your stomach before the event starts. In these larger, the larger pre-event meals for afternoon sporting events is probably going to be lunch. Giving yourself, again, a good 2 hours to get it through your stomach, out of the stomach, so it's not sloshing on and making us ill. 2 hours at a minimum, though. Depending upon what's in that meal, if you get those meals that stick to your ribs, that are higher protein or higher fat, which typically isn't going to be what we're going to recommend, but those meals, just so you know, stay in your stomach longer. And if you're eating a school lunch and it's Pizza Friday and you've got a game that night, if you don't give yourself a good 4 or 5 hours, you're probably going to be burping on pizza sauce, not feeling so hot. So give yourself adequate time to digest that. Mostly, we want our pre-event meals to be high carbohydrate, moderate protein, moderate fat, again, because that protein and fat is what's going to cause the meal to stick to your ribs. So mostly carbohydrate things like rice, potatoes, noodles, breads, fruits, juices. And as far as post-competition meals, that's when we want to be a little bit more generous, especially with protein. basically what that protein is doing is, whether we're working out or we're in an athletic event, we're kind of beating up the body. There are small little microscopic injuries that happen within the body all over the place, you know, whether we get dinged by a helmet or our legs are sore because we're running and sprinting all day long. Those little injuries need protein to be repaired. Protein's kind of like the building block of the body, the brick that the body was built with. So making sure that you give yourself enough protein afterwards to repair. And generally, in the course of a day, you want to get probably 1 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight. So basically, a half to a gram per pound. A lot of times you'll see recommendations that will far exceed that. And if we're looking at putting a lot of muscle on a person, it's safe to have a protein intake higher than that. But for the most part, for kids, if we're 14, 15, 16 years old, we're not bodybuilders, and it's not necessary to have that much protein. It's really more than you're going to need. Questions on protein? We'll get a little bit more.
What happens if your intake is too high?
If your intake's too high, it can be rough on the kidneys. Basically, all those amino acids. Think of a protein kind of like a chain. An amino acid is each link on the chain, and you string those amino acids together, and you get a protein. And those amino acids need to be flushed out of the body. It creates a lot of work for the kidneys. So there's some concern there, but for the most part, to get to that point, you have to supplement. You have to be eating a ton of protein. And really, when we're talking about kids and athletics, the chances that you're eating that much protein, unless you're just down in weight gainer shakes and stuff like that, you're probably not going to get there. There's only one story that I've heard of that was documented kidney damage, and this guy was eating 800 to 1,000 grams of protein a day, which is a whole lot. To get there, you really got to make an effort.
So,
Eating whole sides of beef. What else? So when we talk about the macronutrients are basically fat, carbohydrate, and protein. You hear a lot about vitamins and minerals. We'll talk more about those later. But when it comes to athletic feeding and worrying about what we're eating, as long as we're getting whole foods and we're trying to get as little of our nutrition from supplements as possible, that multivitamin that we talked about, great. We'll take a multivitamin, it's insurance if we're missing something in our diet. But for the most part, vitamins and minerals are going to be best absorbed in their natural state from fruits and vegetables. So, but when it comes to feeding for athletic performance, we're looking at those protein, carbohydrate, and fat amounts. Again, protein 1 to 2 grams per kilogram, unless you're a competitive bodybuilder. But do we have any vegetarians? No vegetarians. Okay. Well, I guess just quickly then, vegetables and plant products can be a fine source of protein. We see soy protein and it gets a lot of hype for heart health and all that lately. But combinations of different vegetables, different beans and rice, or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Basically, when we talk about vegetable proteins, those amino acids that we talked about, they're not all there. It's not what we call a complete protein. But if we mix different sources of vegetable protein, wheat and peanut butter, or like I said, beans and rice, we get all those amino acids that we need to make a complete protein and an effective protein. So, I guess.
I have a question on
Yeah.
snacks and food. Because my daughter, she tends to do this like crash and burn. Go, and then it's just like she just melts. And so I've been saying, I think you need more protein. Like, I don't know if she's really lacking in carbs, but, I'm like, okay, take some nuts to school, and I'm like, take a Clif Bar, and I'm trying to so she doesn't have these crashes where she's almost like, gets that headache, and, so, am I on track with that, or?
Yes, it probably has to do with not only meal composition, but also meal timing. She's probably, a lot of kids tend to get more refined carbohydrates, sugars, and things like that. They throw a whole bunch into their body, and what happens is then your insulin goes up as a response to all that carbohydrate. And the effect of insulin is to pull all that sugar out of your bloodstream. So you got a whole bunch of insulin in there, you pull all the blood out of all the sugar out of your bloodstream, and you have no sugar. You lose all your energy and you crash. So when you hear about glycemic index, you maybe with like the Mediterranean diet or the selfie